Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us for a insightful and interesting conversation. We're going to do things a little differently as we usher in the new year. We are entering 2025 with a lot of elements in the world around us changing. And one of those elements that affects all of us is the future of work and the nature of work and how work is going to impact our lives and how we are going to impact the work life. And to have this dialogue with me is a dear friend of my brother and somebody who serves this space in helping individuals emerge as leaders and
Mhm.
successfully navigate both life and work in our emerging future. So, Marquez, welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, and absolutely delighted to make this a family conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Kaz. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And what a topic. There's so many new horizons in the expansion of technology, making it more available for people to work all over the place. This is a fun dialogue. I can't wait to see where we go with it. But thank you for having me, and Happy New
Oh,
Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, Marquez. So, just as we get started, you positioned how technology is transforming everything. To me, the
Mm,
beautiful thing is there are initiatives going on around the world to democratize education because
mhm.
technology is allowing education to be democratized. And this is shifting the conversation, shifting the dynamics. Countries and cultures that are pricing education out of the reach of people are going to be left behind, and countries and cultures that are democratizing education and bringing people into the fold are going to grow and thrive. What are some of the areas you're seeing that are driving this transformation and making it possible for the world of work and life to coexist in this emerging future?
I First of all, I love it. I love that it's being democratized because of the abuse, right? There's this ideology or a great marketing system that was put in play that allowed for that to transpire in the first place. And unfortunately, it has made it difficult for decades for other people to be acknowledged equally. We've talked in the past about in the US how international students would come in and they'd be charged double what residential students were, and their facilities, i.e., where my daughter goes to school, is subpar. With that balance breaking up, I'm excited. I'm excited that the world at large is starting to grow an opportunity for the cream to rise, shall we say, or those who are willing to get the work done. They're going to have equal opportunity to engage, to express themselves, to be, hey, I would like that opportunity, that job. I can fulfill that void. I have the wherewithal and the ability to scale myself and proof that I can do it. So I'm excited. I'm excited. It's going to be interesting because first world countries are now in a new way under threat. And I'm not sure what the answers will be unless access to that education is blocked. It's going to be a very interesting next 20 to 50 years for sure.
Absolutely. And the trends are interesting because the first world countries are so-called rich countries
Mm-hmm.
that are technically the former imperial nations,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all
Mm-hmm.
aging nations. So
Mm-hmm.
they have the demand, but they don't have the supply to meet those demands in terms of human capital.
Mm-hmm.
And then the countries and nations that are developing that were colonized, that are now exploding with growth,
Yeah.
both economically and population wise.
Hmm.
They have the supply. And COVID has created an environment where you can serve based on your skills and capabilities
Hmm.
without ever leaving home, allowing nations to build their own wealth, right? So you can
Hmm.
get educated without leaving home country, and you can work as a long distance digital nomad worker
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
bring the income into your country. So GDP and everything is coming into your country. And there are
Hmm.
schools that are being set up to facilitate this. So breaking the traditional norms of wealth always shifting
Yeah.
from former colonies to
Yeah.
former colonial imperial countries, right? So
Hmm.
that is a amazing shift to see, but it is also going to come with some adjustments for everybody. So I'm curious to see what you are seeing and what you
Yeah.
are envisioning in that shift.
Yeah. Doc, the interesting relationship with the incoming President Donald Trump and the um, Republican, at least outwardly focused, saying we want immigration out, might not be the answer they're actually looking for this shift that's transpiring, because not only are the affordable employees that corporations are looking for not in the US, they're in developing countries like where I am in Brazil, and I'm watching people who are hungry, who are putting the effort in, who are studying instead of going to the ocean, preparing themselves for this growth transformation. You also have countries saying, hey, we've got areas, come live and work here as a digital nomad. We will pay you and help you find property. So on one side, it's super exciting that the world is going to seemingly have more balance, or more people can play at a scale of equality. That'll be interesting to watch, to see, will companies pay, or will they say, well, you live in this country, so therefore your pay is only X, but where we make our money is in a first world country. That'll be a very interesting dialogue that I've been trying to figure out. Okay, how are corporations going to manage that? I personally don't think it's fair, but I also understand, how do you prevent upsetting economies? And I'm not sure what that answer looks like. I'll be curious to see what you think there. But then you have other countries saying, hey, come live here. We'll help you get established. We'll give you a free visa. We'll help you get citizenship. And that is actually very intriguing. That may leave some of these first world countries like the US, where I'm from, starving, looking for employees, not
Mhm.
sure how to move forward. And that's a very real reality that this new world of decentralization is offering us. And quite honestly, I think humanity needs the decentralization. I think it's healthy for humanity, but I'm not sure how first world countries, unquote, are going to manage that. It's a very challenging thing. When I've had conversations with my peers, we've looked at, okay, capitalism is great. You can do some things with capitalism that allows for some opportunities, but it has its peak. And once it reaches its peak, the bottom falls out. At least I'm not an economist. I don't claim to be, but based on what I'm seeing, there's no way to maintain it if the prices are increasing, but the level of living or access to money to live is decreasing or staying the same while costs are still rising. It's creating a whole new world that makes me think, yep, Brazil, Africa, India, those countries are, Mexico, these countries have prepared themselves and been preparing themselves for this shift that's happening.
Mhm.
And I'm not
It's
sure.
interesting.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's interesting you say that because I just read Ghana is issuing citizenship to African diaspora from
Yes.
the West.
Yes.
So you don't need to prove your ancestry. You're all African diaspora. So you
Yeah.
want to become citizens of Ghana, you want to become a Ghanaian. They just brought in a new batch of citizens into Ghana and Africa with 54 countries. It's the fastest growing continental economy there is, with a
Yeah.
massive youth population, with a massive demand and supply.
Mm-hmm.
But most corporations are afraid to go in because they have all these biases, right? An interesting point you made. Capitalism is not allowing this, but I always question and
Mm-hmm.
challenge the notion that what we see in the developed world, the rich
Mm-hmm.
countries, the first world
Mm-hmm.
nations, as they call themselves, is really not capitalism, it's corporate colonialism. We switched a colonial master for a corporate master because the true capitalism
Mm-hmm.
is a balance between the worker and the investor, the capitalist, with
Yes.
regulation playing as a pivot so that
Mm-hmm.
balance is always maintained with the singular purpose of building the wealth of nations
Mm-hmm.
so that the workers and the nation prospers, right? So
Yep.
United States was that breeding ground for capitalism to thrive in its
Mm-hmm.
original form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But over time, research shows that the Sun
Mm-hmm.
Belt and the born again Christianity all
Mm-hmm.
coming together saying you can sin, and the term they use is you can become re-virginized. So you abstain for 2 weeks and you say, I'm sorry, and you go for confession, and now you're born
Ah,
again. Now you
yes.
get to go sin again. White collar
Mm-hmm.
crimes are not crimes. If you do a white collar crime, we actually pay 500,000 and bring you to a conference to speak. If you steal a loaf of bread, we throw you in jail, right? So
Mm-hmm.
everything is so stilted, and what we truly have
Mm-hmm.
is not capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a believer that this is an opportunity for everybody who cares with the
Yeah.
democratization of technology
Yeah.
and education,
Yep.
with emotional intelligence and mindfulness to
Mm-hmm.
build a group of leaders
Mm-hmm.
who can recreate the capitalism Adam Smith intended,
Mm.
because this is not what was intended. This has been
Yeah.
hijacked.
Yeah.
And anything that destroys the whole in the service of a few will fail.
Mm-hmm.
Same way
Mm-hmm.
marriages fail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Economies, countries, and the global sustainability will fail if
Mm-hmm.
everybody exists to serve a handful.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up about the original intent of capitalism, because I was just doing some research, listening to must have been a YouTube channel about 3 weeks ago, explaining how America at one point in that model, everyone was growing, but then people looked around and said, well, how do they have access to what I have? That can't be fair. And so the fact that we even call it a white collar crime is a crime. It has far more detrimental impact on the economy and people than a loaf of bread would any day. But the way it was separated shifted. Crazy to me, but that would be a beautiful dream, to find out how to reinvent it so that it was holistic again. That's a very unique approach. I can't wait to see what these corporations decide to do. I really can't. Thank you for distinguishing between those two. On the flip side, what I do think is critical and crucial, and what I seek to do with as an individual, as founder of Visible, as someone who loves humanity, is help people, one, self-identify. I feel like, Kaz, until we do that, if our first focus is a hierarchy need, feed myself, which is super important and we need to do it, it makes it difficult, right? If access limits. But once we've figured out feed myself, how do we also figure out, well, who am I? So that when I'm doing with my activity, I'm rewarded for what I need. And in being rewarded for what I need by being who I am, I don't have to overly increase my need for more, which then entraps me in capitalism in the negative context, where I'm now searching for greed. I'm searching for more, because the interesting thing about these developing nations is, hey, there's fruit on the corner right here. It's super fresh, best papaya I've ever had in my life, and I can go to the ocean to relax. I don't need anything else. And while they have that mentality of gratitude as it's thrown around right now, but their sense of self-sufficiency or need is met, it makes them more available to actually be present in work being more meaningful, and in many ways produce a better product. I mean, today, I tend to think I'm decent looking, but no, I had my hair cut, I had my face shaven, nose, ears, washed everything with a guy who offered me an espresso halfway between stopped, allowed me to drink my espresso, went back to taking care of me, hot towel, everything for $15 and the tip that I gave him.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that to say, because his need is met, he's doing something that gives life to him. Not only does he get the tip, but he also has the internal satisfaction. But I think the trap in the first world nations is we've sought the corporate greed, the more, the need for more. I need to have more than what the person next to me has. And that has led us astray from who we actually are. And so now we're only chasing. But when we're chasing, we're really harboring envy, which breaks up community, which causes more stress, more dis-ease, which causes more corporate conflict. And we then outprice ourselves because we're in the sake of gain. We're in the process of gain just for the sake of gain itself. And the meaning and the quality isn't there. That is what we're hoping to restore. The sense of, wait, no, who are you? Let's figure out how to let go of the things so you can discover who you are. Because as you're able to do that, like the gentleman who served me today, you can then work for anyone in any country and be fulfilled because you've not outpaced who you are, you've grown who you are, and your desires are in alignment with what you value. We were talking about values, not you, but I was talking about value with someone else earlier. What you value then dictates what you need. And that shifts everything. I think first world countries, we value some of the wrong things, and now we're in this trap that we don't know how to escape, or as we call it, the rat race, and we're stuck. But what we're seeking to do, Kaz, is help people rediscover who they are so that they can begin to find meaning in their life and their work again, which shifts everything.
And I love the mission. I am honored to have been part of the journey in
You
building
are part of the journey.
building the mission, and cannot wait for the world to see and take a ride. And one of the things that always sticks with me is anytime we want more and more and more, it's an addiction. And an addiction never, ever stops until it escalates to a point of life-ending catastrophe.
Yeah.
And how do we break that cycle? It's to take an introspective journey. Who am I? Why am I here? And how am I going to live my purpose? And what do I need to do to fulfill my purpose? And how do I build a community around me so that together we go accomplish? Research shows that there are 3 things a human needs to maintain to have a healthy, functioning adult life. The 3 are a healthy pair of lungs, a healthy heart, and a pair of healthy thigh muscles that you can walk and meet people and build a community and engage. And as I am facilitating my husband's end-of-life care with Lewy body dementia, which is Parkinson's, dementia, and visual hallucination. In spite of his muscles, his Parkinson's not allowing him movement, he makes sure he's holding the walker and sitting and standing and bending his knees from the chair, because he knows if he can walk up to the other patients who are in their end of life and they can hold hands and talk, they can make each other laugh, everybody's day is better. For Christmas, I dressed him up as Santa Claus. I brought him home for Christmas, but I dressed him up as Santa Claus and took him back to that facility so that as a community, they all shared Christmas. They all took pictures with Santa. They all sat and ate together. The community showed up, children showed up singing. And we're talking about the country of Belize. My husband is born and raised American, Pennsylvania Dutch, but his end-of-life care is in Belize. Why? Because it's a place where you can build these communities without
Yeah.
worrying about is there a profit motive, right? And
Right.
so, what are we doing? What are we
Yeah.
building?
Yeah.
And what does the future hold?
Yeah.
Future takes care of itself if we can take care of our present. So, at the
Hmm.
present, how am I showing up? Who am
Yeah.
I being? The
Hmm.
person I am being, how is that impacting work? And how is that impacting life? Because work is supposed to facilitate my life. I don't live to work, I work to facilitate my life, right?
Mm.
So, how
That's
do I
right.
make sure I don't put the cart before the horse and I build this ecosystem with the right harmony? I don't use the word balance because balance
Mm.
requires two things. Life has more than two elements, right? So,
Good.
how do I harmonize the world around me so that
Hmm.
I extract the maximum joy and impact from this life?
Hmm.
Because in the grand scheme of things, it's a blink of an eye.
It is. And when you said that, how do I maximize um, the world or the community or the ecosystem I am in? The harmony of that statement is, what can I give? How much can I give in it? How much can I exchange this thing I call purpose? How can I use that as my means of exchange? How can I use that as my means of transaction, of exchange in a way that that shifts things? Like, I love that Mike was able to use his humor, his love for Christmas, his love for others in his end of life to still bring light to others. That is the exchange.
Mhm.
That is, to me, that's why I believe very strongly in developing countries, because they value something uniquely different. And as a result, whatever they have has the ability to be so much more than just a small fragment as we may count it because of the exchange.
Mhm. And I love where you're going with this conversation, Marquise, because you know, and most of our audience know, I'm born and raised in Sri Lanka, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a product of the United States. I was not made in America, right? So when people ask me what was the biggest culture shock, the biggest
Mm-hmm.
thing you had to adjust and overcome,
Mm-hmm.
I talk about how I come from a world where we value people and we use things by sharing.
That's
If
right.
one
That's
person
right.
down the street has a car, everybody has a car. If one
That's right.
person has a
That's
vacuum
right.
cleaner, everybody has one. If one person has a washing machine,
Mm-hmm.
everybody has one. We all
That's
don't have
right.
to go and buy everything, right?
That's right.
And
That's
here
right.
I am in a society where we value things and use people to get those things. And
Mm-hmm.
I back it up by saying, but I don't ever want to adjust. I
Please
don't
don't.
ever want to adapt to it because the
Mm-hmm.
minute I do that, I lose my sense of who I am and I become in service to the thing, the monetization and
Yeah.
monetizing human life and human experience. To me, is a slippery slope for the joy my life is supposed to have.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going there.
It's good, Kaz. The one of the buzz terms in business that I heard a lot this year, it's not new, but I feel like I heard it more this year than ever before, is imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of that is because we are used to valuing things and not people, let alone ourselves. And I appreciate who you are and what you brought into my life through your culture because I identify with it. That's how I grew up. But as I get older, I'm realizing that's what life actually is.
Mhm.
To move to the suburbs, nothing wrong with it. To move to the suburbs to not have a neighbor for a mile, nothing wrong with it. It negates my necessity to exist on the planet and exchange with others, which is what my purpose is about. I'm not born for my four and no more. I'm born to exchange in other groups to discover, enhance who I am while also like Mike and his end of life enhance the lives of others.
Mhm.
I
And
don't
it's
know that.
funny, Mike is like, yeah, you're going to take me back to my other home on the second, right? I said, yeah, but what's the rush? He says, I have to report to duty. He says, I have to report to duty for the new year. Everybody's waiting for me. I have to bring cheer. I have to tell stories. We have to plan. We have to keep each other happy. And I know you have to go back to the US to work. You can't be in Belize. You have to work and make money to pay for my care. But I am also going to work because I am going to make that place a happier place. Right. And so it's joyful for me to see a American born and raised person who's traveled the world since marriage, but who's never lived outside the country, is
Wow.
so beautifully adapting and embracing a
Hmm.
life based on love and sharing and caring,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
seeing the value in that exchange. And reporting to duty is I need to go and make other people happy. I mean,
Yeah.
what more do I want, right? So I always tell my friends, my heart is full. My heart is full because he and I have love,
Yeah.
but that love doesn't stay contained, right? A gift is only a gift if you can give it away. And we are both able to give it away. And if we don't give it, it is not our gift.
Yeah. Oh, that's good, Kaz. That's good. That's really good.
Mhm.
It's
So
one of
my
the,
message to everybody as they step into 2025, take an introspective journey and figure
mhm.
out who you are and what
Yeah.
is your gift. Your
Yeah.
gift is first to yourself,
That's right.
and then take the excess and give it away. Because if you don't give it away, it was never your gift to begin with.
Yeah. That, Kaz, as a foundation, I think begins to shift. Each individual gives each individual the opportunity to figure out, okay, what does the future of work look like for me? What we're suggesting is starting with who you are, discovering your gift, and you can couple that with your skill and start to work from that versus who's going to pay me the most money that I can get. And while getting it, be miserable, unavailable, existing for a check, which, as you've watched over recent decades, isn't guaranteed.
Yes, and at the end of the journey, you've lost yourself in pursuit of what material that you don't get to take when you leave. Only thing we
Yeah,
take with us is the impact we've created in the lives of others.
that's
Nothing
right.
else we get to take when we exit this world. Not even
That's
all
right.
the plastic surgery we people tend to do on their body. Nothing. Everything is left
Yeah,
behind. So
yeah,
what if all of that is invested in lifting up others, making
yeah,
memories, right?
yeah, yeah. And Cass, really quick, I'm sure you and Mike have probably had this conversation. I think sometimes the idea of living to give gets watered down and people feel as if they are not receiving. And so it's like, well, why do I have to live for others? Not understanding that giving gives something back. Can you share on that? Because I feel like we've alluded to this idea of
Yeah.
purpose, and most people think of it outside of themselves, but there's something in that.
Absolutely. And thank you for that question. So I grew up in a culture where we're educated as children through storytelling. And we're
Mm,
all taught that life and life's purpose is like being a tree. We water
yeah,
the roots anchor us.
yeah.
But the
Hmm.
roots don't give us the shade. Your roots don't give us the leaves, the branches, the fruits, the flowers. It comes from other places. So everything is connected and interconnected. You water the roots and you do what you are intended to do. And if
Hmm.
everybody does what they're intended to do, then the universe unfolds as it should and everybody wins.
Yeah,
If I
yeah.
water the flowers or the leaves, I kill the plant,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
So understand, and Mother Nature is the best teacher to me.
Yeah.
Every time I look out the window, I'm learning something. The birds and the beasts and the butterflies and the plants, they got this down. We
Mhm.
who claim who have a sixth sense have forgotten how to make it functional in pursuit of material,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like we mortgage our heart to buy a calculator so that we can add everything up throughout life. And at the end of life, just like Steve Jobs, didn't have anybody, didn't feel fulfilled. All the money in the world is not going to give you what you want, and money doesn't buy the most important things in life. It can buy you a house, it can't make it a home. It can get you a trophy spouse, but it doesn't give you that love and support. The minute you
Right.
get sick, the trophy spouse is out the door. Who is going to stay and support?
Yeah.
And you know what they say, wherever you focus is where your energy shifts. Same way,
Yeah.
where whatever you water will
Mm,
sustain you.
it's good. It's good.
And so if you're ever in doubt, I always remind people to do two things. Look out your window and look at the trees and see what they are teaching you. And then
Yeah.
every night, look up in the sky and look at the moon. It
It's
doesn't
good.
matter what stage it is in. It may be a full moon, it may be a new moon, and it
Yeah.
can be anywhere in between. But guess
Yeah.
what? It is there and it's living its purpose and it is
Yeah.
shining the best
Yeah.
way possible. And it is still whole, even if we can't see it.
It's
And
good.
then remind yourself what the moon is teaching you and
Hmm.
take that lesson into life, because it doesn't matter. We're all going to have bad days. We're all going to
Yeah.
have days where we don't feel like we're showing up. That is
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. That's so good. When you were talking, one of the last thoughts I had that I had heard recently is particularly when you're talking about this work element of, well, I want to go, at the number of people I meet who like can't wait to go to the US to work. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah. The phrase was, the grass isn't always greener. Sometimes it's actually turf.
Absolutely.
And if it's turf, you find out it's artificial. It's not what you thought it was. It hits harder. Nothing grows there. So just be aware. You talked about watering and the necessity to water. I think there's a lot to be said about watering where you are, uh, because at some point it will become the shade. It will produce the fruit. It will produce the paper to write. The wood to burn. It will have the opportunity to give back, but it always starts with that.
Yeah. Responsible leaders plant trees
That's
that'll give shade for the future generation, right? And that is the goal. How are we creating
yeah,
a democratized environment of work through technology and education so that
that's
each person steps into the world to
right.
plant a tree that
That's right.
others will get shade from?
That's
And
right.
that then builds an ecosystem that sustains all of us. And
Yeah.
to me, that is my hope and my wish and my prayer as
Yeah.
I set foot into 2025, and
Yeah.
taking every ounce of joy Mike brings into the notion that I have to report to duty on the second, very
Yeah.
military style, right? I've been
Yeah.
recruited,
Yeah.
I'm reporting for
Yeah.
duty. And end of life is only the body and the soul separating. In my language, there is no word for death. When I
Mm,
tell people my husband is no more, if I directly translate it into English, it will say literally, Mike has become one with time,
wow.
meaning his soul is part of that eternal energy. So I come
Hmm.
from a culture where death is not a tragedy, it is the
Hmm.
ultimate freedom of the soul. And the
Hmm.
love the soul shares doesn't end. So if we take that and apply it to the work and the community and the society, imagine the power and the energy and the amplification of that energy when we truly can love one another. Love is not a sexual thing. Love is a
Right.
spiritual thing, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you only receive it when you give it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what would happen in the world if we showed up with the capacity to be a leader who can be kind, caring, compassionate, have grace, because we don't know what people are going through, and that
Yeah.
come from that place of love, because that is the ultimate human experience. And imagine how much richer all our lives will be. And we will all have the most important things money can't buy. So my New Year wish to everybody is go find yourself and then seek that thing that lasts, that transcends,
Mm-hmm.
and then go live it and live it wholeheartedly. And as you said, Marquise, don't settle for existing.
Good. I share that with you. That's what I did in 2024. And I want to do more in 2025. Is be with leaders to self-discover, to
So
create
wish
space
you
for
all a
Thank you.
very happy 2025 from Marquise and I. And go out there and live your full life. And when you
Yeah.
want to come back and share your story, reach out. Unleash Your
Will
Inner
do.
Goldilocks is here to share your story, to amplify your message, and bring your goodness to the whole world, because sharing is part of that goodness amplifying.
Thanks for having me, Doc.
Absolute pleasure. And a very happy new year to all of you, and have a blessed year ahead.